Welcome. Here's something important. What if something sitting quietly in your kitchen right now had the potential to change how your body ages, how it burns fat, and how it defends itself at the cellular level, and almost nobody has told you about it? Imagine adding one simple ingredient to your morning coffee, something that costs less than your daily cup itself, and triggering three processes your body has been slowly losing for decades. This isn't a bold promise or a miracle claim. It's a shift grounded in emerging science that is only now beginning to reach everyday awareness, even though it has existed in research for years. And once you understand how it works, you'll start to see your morning routine very differently. Over the past 2 decades, a growing body of research has focused on what really changes inside the body after the age of 60. Not just the visible signs like slower movement or reduced energy, but the deeper biological shifts happening at the cellular level. What's surprising is not just that these changes occur, but that they happen together, reinforcing each other in ways most people never realize. There are 3 core processes at play, and understanding them is the foundation for everything that follows. The first is a decline in mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are responsible for producing energy inside your cells. When you're younger, your cells are filled with them, working efficiently to keep your body energized. But as you age, both their number and performance drop significantly. By the time you reach your mid-60s, your cells may be operating at nearly half the energy capacity they once had. This is why activities that once felt effortless now feel draining, and why recovery takes longer than it used to. The second process is stem cell depletion, and this is where things become more serious. Stem cells act as your body's repair system. They replace damaged tissue, rebuild worn structures, and keep your organs functioning properly. In younger years, this system works continuously and efficiently, but over time, the number of available stem cells declines sharply. By your 60s, your body may be working with only a fraction of the repair capacity it once had. That means slower healing, reduced regeneration, and a greater chance that damaged cells remain in the body longer than they should. The third process is metabolic slowdown. As you age, your body becomes less efficient at using fat for energy and increasingly relies on glucose instead. This shift might seem harmless, but it has deeper implications. When your metabolism becomes heavily dependent on glucose, it creates an internal environment that favors certain harmful cellular behaviors. This imbalance doesn't just affect weight, it influences how cells grow, repair, and function. What makes this even more important is how these 3 processes interact. They don't operate separately. Reduced mitochondrial function increases cellular stress. That stress damages DNA. Fewer stem cells mean less repair, and a glucose-heavy metabolism feeds the cycle further. It becomes a loop that accelerates aging from the inside out. So the real question becomes this: is there a way to interrupt all 3 of these processes at once? Not with complicated routines or extreme diets, but with something simple enough to become part of your daily life. The answer, according to a growing number of studies, is yes, and it starts with understanding how a specific type of dietary fat behaves inside your body. Now that you understand what's happening inside your body after 60, the next step is to look at the one ingredient that directly targets all 3 of those processes at once. This is where things become both simple and surprisingly powerful. The ingredient is a specific type of fat known as MCT oil, and more importantly, a particular fraction of it called C8. At first glance, it looks like just another dietary supplement, but once you understand how your body processes it, the difference becomes clear. Most of the fats you eat every day, whether they come from oils, meat, or nuts, are long-chain fats. These fats go through a slow and complex digestive process. They travel through your lymphatic system, circulate in your bloodstream, and often end up stored rather than used. That's why simply eating more fat doesn't automatically translate into more energy or fat loss. The body treats it cautiously and slowly. MCT oil works differently because of its structure. The chains of carbon atoms in MCTs are shorter, which allows them to bypass much of the usual digestive pathway. Instead of taking hours to process, they move directly to the liver through the portal vein. And once they reach the liver, they are rapidly converted into molecules known as ketones. One of these ketones, called beta-hydroxybutyrate, plays a central role in everything that follows. Ketones are often associated with fasting or strict low-carb diets, but what many people don't realize is that MCT oil can produce them even if you haven't changed anything else about your diet. This means you can shift your body into a different metabolic state without extreme restrictions. That shift is what begins to influence energy production, fat metabolism, and even cellular repair. The first major effect is an increase in fat burning. When ketone levels rise, your body receives a signal to start using fat as its primary fuel source instead of glucose. This isn't just a minor adjustment, it's a measurable change in how your cells generate energy. Studies have shown that people using MCT oil burn fat at a significantly higher rate compared to those using traditional fats, even when calorie intake remains the same. More importantly, the fat that gets used is often the most dangerous kind, the visceral fat stored around your organs. But this is only the beginning. What makes this process even more interesting is that it happens quickly. Unlike other dietary changes that may take weeks to show results, the conversion of MCTs into ketones begins almost immediately after consumption. Your body doesn't need to adapt over time, it responds right away. This rapid response is why timing and consistency matter. When taken in the morning, especially in a fasted state, the effect becomes more pronounced. Your body is already in a slightly fat-burning mode after sleep, and MCT oil amplifies that state, pushing your metabolism further in that direction. However, fat loss is just one piece of the puzzle. The deeper impact lies in what these ketones do inside your cells, particularly in areas that most people never consider. In the next part, we'll look at how this same process begins to influence your mitochondria and your stem cells, and why that matters far more than just burning calories. What happens next goes far beyond simple fat burning. Once ketones begin circulating in your body, they start influencing systems that most people never think about, yet these systems determine how you age, how you recover, and how your body maintains itself over time. This is where the real impact begins, at the level of your mitochondria and your stem cells. Let's start with mitochondria, the energy centers inside your cells. Earlier, we talked about how their number and efficiency decline with age, leaving your body running on reduced capacity. For a long time, this decline was considered unavoidable, something you could slow down slightly with exercise but never truly reverse. That assumption is now being challenged. When your body produces ketones from MCT oil, it activates a key signaling pathway that tells your cells to create more mitochondria. Think of it as sending a message that your current energy production is not enough, and your cells respond by building new energy generators. Over time, this leads to a measurable increase in mitochondrial density and efficiency. In simple terms, your cells regain some of the energy-producing ability they had years earlier. This is why many people notice a steady rise in energy levels after a few weeks of consistent use. It's not a temporary boost like caffeine alone, it's a structural change inside the cells themselves. Your body is literally improving its ability to produce energy from within. Now, this is where things become even more interesting. The same ketones that support mitochondrial growth also play a direct role in protecting your stem cells. Remember, stem cells are responsible for repairing and regenerating tissues throughout your body. As their numbers decline with age, your body loses its ability to recover and maintain itself effectively. Ketones help preserve these cells by keeping them in a stable, protected state. Instead of being overused and depleted, stem cells remain ready to activate when needed. This means they last longer, function better, and respond more effectively when your body requires repair. It's like preserving a skilled workforce instead of exhausting it too early. This connection between energy production and cellular repair is critical. When your mitochondria function better, they produce less cellular stress. Less stress means less damage to your DNA and surrounding tissues. And when your stem cells are preserved, your body is better equipped to fix any damage that does occur. These two systems support each other, creating a more stable internal environment. What makes this especially important is that these changes are not theoretical. They are based on measurable biological responses. The presence of ketones triggers specific genetic signals that influence how cells behave, how they repair themselves, and how long they remain functional. So while most people think of dietary changes in terms of weight or appearance, what's happening here is much deeper. You're influencing the core systems that determine how your body maintains itself over time. And this leads directly to the next piece of the puzzle, one that connects metabolism to something far more serious. In the next part, we'll explore how the same shift in fuel source begins to affect the environment that certain harmful cells depend on, and why that connection matters more than most people realize. To understand the next piece, you need to look at how different cells in your body generate energy, because not all cells play by the same rules. While your healthy cells are flexible and can switch between fuel sources, certain harmful cells rely heavily on one thing: glucose. This dependency creates a weakness, and that weakness is exactly where this approach begins to make a difference. For decades, researchers have observed that rapidly growing abnormal cells consume glucose at an unusually high rate. Even when oxygen is available, they continue to rely on a less efficient process to break down glucose for energy. This behavior might seem inefficient, but it allows them to grow and multiply quickly. The problem is that when your overall metabolism shifts toward constant glucose use, you unintentionally support this environment. Now here's where ketones change the equation. When your body begins producing ketones from MCT oil, it introduces an alternative fuel source that healthy cells can use efficiently. Your normal cells adapt quickly. They switch to using ketones and continue functioning without disruption. But the cells that depend almost entirely on glucose struggle to adapt. At the same time, ketone production naturally lowers the amount of glucose circulating in your blood. This creates a dual effect. You're not just adding a new fuel, you're also reducing the availability of the one fuel that certain harmful cells rely on most. It's a shift in the internal environment, one that favors stability and controlled growth rather than rapid, uncontrolled activity. It's important to stay precise here. This does not mean that a single dietary change can treat or eliminate serious diseases. What the science shows is something more foundational. By adjusting your body's fuel system, you influence the conditions that determine how cells behave. You make the environment less supportive for harmful processes and more supportive for normal cellular function. There's another layer to this as well. Elevated ketone levels are associated with lower inflammation and improved insulin sensitivity. Both of these factors play a role in long-term health. High insulin levels and chronic inflammation are linked to a range of metabolic issues, and reducing them helps create a more balanced internal state. So instead of thinking about this as targeting a single outcome, it's more accurate to see it as changing the terrain inside your body. You're shifting from a glucose-dominant system to a more flexible, balanced one. And that shift affects everything from energy production to cellular repair to metabolic stability. But there's still another critical factor to consider, especially as you age. It's not just about burning fat or improving cellular health. It's about preserving the tissue that keeps your body strong, functional, and resilient over time. As your body changes with age, one of the most overlooked yet critical shifts is the gradual loss of muscle. This isn't just about strength or appearance. Muscle plays a central role in how your metabolism functions, how your immune system responds, and how well your body handles stress and illness. After 60, this loss accelerates, and without the right signals, your body begins to break down muscle more easily, especially when you're trying to lose weight. This creates a frustrating situation. You reduce calories to lose fat, but your body doesn't just burn fat, it also breaks down muscle. Over time, this slows your metabolism even further, making it harder to maintain results. You may weigh less, but you feel weaker, and your overall energy doesn't improve the way you expected. This is where ketones from MCT oil introduce a different response. When your body detects a steady supply of ketones, it interprets that as a sign that energy is available. As a result, it reduces the need to break down muscle tissue for fuel. This is known as an anti-catabolic effect, meaning it helps preserve existing muscle even when you're in a calorie deficit. At the same time, ketones activate a pathway in your body that supports muscle building. Normally, this process depends heavily on insulin, which rises after eating carbohydrates. The problem is that insulin also encourages fat storage. Ketones provide a way to stimulate muscle-building signals without relying on large insulin spikes. This creates a more balanced state where your body can maintain or even build muscle while still burning fat. This combination is rare, especially for people over 60. Preserving muscle while losing fat is something most traditional approaches struggle to achieve. But with the right conditions, your body can shift toward maintaining strength instead of sacrificing it. Now, this process becomes even more effective when combined with a simple factor that many people already include in their daily routine: caffeine. On its own, caffeine helps release stored fat into your bloodstream. It signals your fat cells to break down and make that energy available. But there's a limitation. If your body doesn't immediately use that released fat, it simply gets stored again. This is where MCT oil and caffeine work together. While caffeine releases fat, MCT-derived ketones create a demand for fuel. Your body now has both supply and demand happening at the same time. The fat that is released is quickly used for energy instead of being recycled back into storage. This interaction creates a more efficient fat-burning environment than either one could produce alone. It's not just an additive effect, it's a coordinated one. Your body is both unlocking stored energy and actively using it. Timing plays a key role here. When you consume this combination in the morning, especially before eating, your body is already in a mild fat-burning state from the overnight fast. Adding MCT oil and caffeine amplifies that state, making the process more effective. Now that you understand how all these mechanisms work together, the final step is applying them correctly, because small mistakes can reduce the benefits significantly. The first thing that matters is the type of MCT oil you choose. Not all versions are the same. You want one that is primarily C8 or a mix of C8 and C10, because these convert into ketones quickly and efficiently. Lower quality options often contain components that don't provide the same metabolic effect, so reading the label makes a real difference. Next is how much to take and how to start. Begin with a small amount, about 1 teaspoon in your morning coffee. Give your body a few days to adjust before increasing the dose gradually. This prevents digestive discomfort and allows your system to adapt smoothly. Over time, you can work up to a higher amount, but there's no benefit in rushing this process. Preparation is just as important. Simply stirring the oil into coffee is not enough. It needs to be blended until the texture becomes smooth and uniform. This improves absorption and ensures your body can use it effectively. Taking it within the first hour after waking, before eating anything else, allows you to take full advantage of your body's natural fasting state. If you want to enhance the effect, delay your first meal for a few hours and keep your overall calorie intake slightly below maintenance. Adding light resistance training a few times per week further supports muscle preservation and fat loss. Start simple, stay consistent, give your body a few weeks to respond. And if you want more clear, evidence-based strategies like this that you can actually use in daily life, make sure to follow and stay connected for what comes next. Subscribe for more.